First talk is by the incredible, the indomitable Lorenzo Faletra. Lorenzo, I apologize if I just butchered your last name, aka Palinuro. Lorenzo is the Parrot team leader. He is an incredible coworker. Honestly, I'm very excited to have him as a live talk. And here we go. We'll go through and real quick, I'm going to talk about the other talks, but then we'll go ahead and get started. After this, we'll have the server. Lorenzo's talk will be Your Contribution Matters, How Every Contribution Strengthens Open Source Projects. After that, we have a recorded talk from Emma, The Servers in Your Basement and You, Learning by Building. Following that, we have When Smart Assistants Are Dumb, A Beginner's Guide to Misconfiguring LLMs, which is a really fun talk by Ryan Gordon. Following that, we have an introduction to applied secret sharing for key distribution. That is by Rusty, one of our content engineers, incredibly talented guy. That is going to be a very fun talk, and that's one that I anticipate watching later and just being able to break that down. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Let's Sherlock, Introduction to Blue Team Training by David Forsyth, aka 0xcf, who is our principal training architect at Hack the Box. Incredibly talented. If you haven't read his walkthroughs, definitely check those out before we get to the talk. But yeah, it's going to be great. That being said, I've left Lorenzo waiting. We had him join the live stream a little bit early. And as much as I do love making him stand awkwardly against a wall, let's go ahead and Lorenzo, hey, thank you for being here. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself? Just introduce yourself to the good people.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I made Parrot. I made the Parrot project almost 12 years ago now. And it was for me a very important opportunity to learn about cybersecurity, learn about this industry from an eagle eye perspective on not only the cybersecurity industry as it is, but also the open source world and how open source tools can actually help various information technology industries to grow in amazing directions.
Heck yeah. By the way, thank you again for being here and for doing this live. This is very cool that we're able to have you live. Lorenzo, just to confirm, you're in the Hack the Box headquarters right now, correct?
Yes, we are just opening the new official headquarters of Hack the Box here in Athens. It is ginormous. This place is simply big, and it is amazing. It says a lot about the Hack the Box culture, and you have to come visit it. At some point, you have to.
Heck yeah. I'm looking forward to it personally, but definitely check it out, everyone. Thank you again for being here, Lorenzo. As we get into your talk, let's go ahead and before I actually forget, everyone in chat, because this talk is live, I will be taking a couple questions from chat regarding the topic that we are going over. If you do have a couple questions for Lorenzo, feel free to put them in chat. If you have funny comments too, I might read those. We'll see.
Cool. I took the risk, so now it's okay.
Oh goodness, that's the joke. We've actually replaced him with the Terminator, and that's who we have on the live stream. Anyhow, Lorenzo, would you mind telling us a little bit about Parrot and kind of the history of the Parrot project and how you got involved with that?
Yes, well, Parrot is one of the most known penetration testing Linux distributions. It means that you have your Linux box full of all the tools needed to develop software, do penetration tests, also, test the security of your software or your network infrastructure, or get to know this whole amazing universe with the right tools from the beginning. Now, it used to be a very innovative project back then when I created it by putting a lot of new ideas that were revolutionary for the time. At least I believe so. But now we are kind of the old school kind of project that is now very stable, very big, very established in the industry. But we are still looking forward to the future, to what should be next for a project like that. In fact, we are trying to revolutionize the way the system is organized and ships the tools for the next version, which is Parrot 7. Which will probably be released for next summer. I hope so, with the next Debian stable release. So it is a complex project. It is very big. It includes hundreds and hundreds of cybersecurity tools. So we take care of them so you don't have to. That is the philosophy behind the development of these kind of tools. And also we take a lot of care to the optimization of such tools so that they behave properly with each others. So that's it. But of course, there is always more. For instance, since we really love technology and we love experimenting with it, we also try many new ways of using Parrot. So not only a Linux box sitting on your laptop hard disk with all the tools inside, but we are also experimenting a lot with Docker and container technologies. So you can deliver a tool on a cloud infrastructure and test whatever infrastructure you need to test from wherever you want. You might even use the Parrot toolkit from other operating systems that have nothing to do with Parrot or Debian even. Like you might use the Parrot Docker containers on Windows, macOS, Fedora, or Arch Linux, or any other distribution you like. So my end goal for Parrot is to be less just another Linux distribution for penetration testers and more like a framework of a cohesive set of tools for penetration testing delivered as a framework for people to build on their own and to do amazing stuff.
Out of curiosity, just before I get too far into this, is there a link you'd like me to throw in chat? I know that I kind of have you standing in captive. For people who are interested in getting involved with Parrot, do you want me to grab parrot.org?
Yes, take it. Unfortunately, I don't know why, but I cannot see what's being streamed right now. I still see the starting soon screen.
We can fix that. After this, we should be able to.
Okay.
After, if you want, you can pull up the live stream in YouTube too, and that'll give you a live preview. But anyhow, that is all good. Awesome. I will go ahead and grab that link here in just a little bit, and I will put that in chat just for anyone who is interested. And I'll grab the Discord link as well for Parrot.
Parrotsec.org, and you find everything there.
I definitely typed in parrot.org and did not get that. Here, I'll type that in here. Thank you. Just before I forget and put that in chat. And I can't recommend enough, checking out those open source projects, especially the Parrot community, because the Parrot community is incredibly welcoming. That being said, I don't want to keep you too long from your the actual questions that we had. Want to go right into those?
Yeah, why not?
Heck yeah. So here's our first question that we have for you for our interview here too. And thank you, Musad, as well for that comment in the love and chat. The first question is, how important is it to contribute to an open source project for your personal career development? And I do have a follow-up on this afterwards. So how important is it for your career development?
Well, it was today.
Maybe I think you're cutting out a little bit, Lorenzo. Could you step just a little bit forward, closer to the mic?
Yes, I'm using actually the headset as a mic, so maybe should I?
Yeah, you're good then. It was clipping for just a second. There we go.
Oh, okay. Well, for me, actually contributing to open source projects was crucial, not only because of the visibility and exposure that it gave me, better than having a degree actually, but also because the amount of things I could learn by doing that. Things that nobody else will ever teach you. So for me, that was a double opportunity. But it is also a question people ask me every time I'm invited to a conference or something. I'm like assaulted by people, and this is one of the questions they tell me: why open source? How can open source help me with my personal career? And there is an example I give back to people who give me that question, which is: imagine you are in a company, you are HR or you are doing an interview to some new candidates because you need to hire them, maybe for a technical position, hopefully. Who will you hire? That's the question. A guy who just graduated and is now learning what's next in their career, or someone who actually contributed to the projects and the technologies you need someone to be hired for. I give an example. Who will you hire? Someone who just studied databases at school, or someone who had some contribution, even if it's minimal, to PostgreSQL or MySQL? For me, that guy who actually worked on Postgres or MySQL has something more that just a just graduated student might not have. So I will probably go with that. And this is usually how you can develop your career, your CV, by contributing to the projects that are of interest for the industry you want to get involved with. So my suggestion is go check them out, go check those projects, see what they need to evolve, which might not be code, because code might be difficult to understand, and to actually propose a valuable change to them, you might spend way more time than you actually have. So maybe you could contribute by helping with translations, by helping with maintaining the documentation, and so forth. This is valuable contribution that such projects really need from, especially the first comers to the project, and that will give you a lot of visibility anyways. And also a lot of understanding about how the project actually works, how the database engine, for instance, actually works.
Yeah,
it also gives
absolutely.
you a lot of confidence while you answer a technical interview for a position.
I'm glad you highlighted that confidence, just because that's so important. And it, would you say it really gives you something to speak to in those interviews? Not to put words in your mouth.
Sorry?
Would you say it's something that, so you mentioned that confidence that you have in interviews from working on these projects. Would you say that confidence comes from having something that you can speak to, or could you describe that a little bit more?
Absolutely, confidence emerged, especially for us, the IT guys who are, a bit shy at publicly exposing themselves. Confidence is that thing that emerges when you don't just know the matter, but own it. And the only way to own it, if you did something for yourself related to that. An open source project for me is the best way to learn something on your own that you like, that you're craving for. So I think confidence is crucial and can actually emerge from you having to write the documentation of MySQL, because you didn't just learn the difference between, I don't know, MySQL and MariaDB by reading a book or some online posts. Maybe you documented that actual thing on their official documentation, so you had to study to, and that reference is now your words on that if you had read documentation, for instance. But even with other smaller projects, for instance, for me years ago was contributing to the Bitcoin project. Before actually, not to the Bitcoin core project, but to several Bitcoin related projects. For me to feel confident enough to submit the pull requests to those projects, I went studying the papers, reading the code. Even if I didn't understand it, I learned C++ by trying to create my own Bitcoin core fork. Of course, it wasn't successful. People approached me to do scams online, so I closed everything and call it a day. But I learned a lot of things on doing that. And now today, I could kind of call me myself an expert on how blockchain technologies work, just because I wasted the necessary time on code, on my own projects, and on projects of other people around. And that was possible only because of open source. So it's a mindset. It's a mindset, and it's a way you approach life, maybe.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think my webcam is trying to die today, so I may swap. I have other webcams I can swap it out for after the fact. You said it's a way of life. So I have a follow-up question on that. We had an awesome question in chat. Let me go ahead and grab the one that we have in chat from Asterate, and I'll go ahead and pull it up here. I'll read this out loud for you because I don't know if you'll be able to see it. This question reads, how does one contribute to an open source project? Like approaches and stuff, as I feel it's quite big and scary to approach. Where would you recommend getting started if you were new and wanted to get started with this? You mentioned some documentation. Are there other areas that you'd recommend?
Yeah, even code, little pull requests. If the software maybe lacks a feature that you want to introduce and you might want to try to implement it, why not? There are two things. In fact, I really like the choice of words in that comment because especially the scary word is very, very accurate for how you feel when you first approach an open source project. It's very, very scary because you're putting yourself out, not to just a company, but to the whole world to see your thing. Most of the times, your first contributions might get declined because not of the code itself, but because of the structure, the way you presented it. My suggestion is to not get stopped there. It wasn't a judgment on your skill set, on your ability to contribute to it. It was just a way for them to push you to do better, to follow the coding standard they have already adopted, to follow a specific standard in how the pull request should be made, and so forth. So don't consider a declined pull request as a failure or as you not being enough to contribute to. Just continue. Ask for them to tell you how to get better. Ask for examples. Ask for other things. Help you to do their proper pull request, to integrate your code there. And that will make, of course, your first approach way easier. For me, the first contribution was translations. I got a couple declined. I didn't care. It was just translations. It was way easier. Others were adopted. And seeing my code, my little Italian translation in that program I used daily, was an amazing feeling that everyone should, I think, should feel at least once in their life. But of course, every project is different. Every project has not only its own programming language of choice, but also their own standards in the way the code is built, tested, deployed, reviewed, and so forth. So the first step is to actually learn how to read an open source project. You have to learn how to read before learning how to write, of course. It is the same for code. You read how other people made the comments, the commits. You read how other people made the functions, structured the code, where did they handle the errors, and so forth. So this way you can have an initial understanding on how the project is structured. And some of the times, especially for the very, very, very big projects, you might notice that they are made modularly. So you don't have to understand it all. Once I tried to open the Blender source code, it was a mess of C++ code. I couldn't figure out where to start from. But Blender, from the graphical user interface, you can see it has separate modules with separate functions. So I looked for them in code, and I noticed it was way easier to cut the bigger problem into smaller ones and just learn from what you actually needed to put your hands on. Linus Torvalds, the creator and inventor of the Linux kernel, actually said during the last open source summit in Vienna, yes, it was in Vienna, that he doesn't understand the whole of the Linux kernel. He only knows how a couple of modules of the Linux kernel work, and then he relies exclusively on the respective module maintainers to keep the whole kernel project coherent. So if not even the founders of big projects can have a full understanding of the whole, don't worry if you don't get the same from the beginning, especially from the beginning, because for some project, nobody can.
Thank you for bringing up that example too with Linus, especially with his fun commentary. Be warned, if you reply to mail threads or email threads with him on it, you may get sassed out, and it's pretty hilarious because he does not mince words.
Now he's getting better, actually, but yeah, he still has opinions. But those opinions, you might agree or not, those opinions forced the kernel development community to actually adopt very, very high quality standards for how code is written. Because Linux, of course, is a big project, is an important one, and everyone will dream to gain exposure through it. So the Linux project gets flooded constantly by people who try to do fancy looking code just to show up themselves. And this is what they were trying to solve. And I think this is where the behavior of Linus Torvald degenerated from. But even Parrot, the Parrot project, which is way smaller, it is not all made by myself. It is, a distribution based off another distribution. I don't know all the tools. I don't know how to use all the tools that are inside. A few minutes ago, before we started the live, a guy from Mac in the Box working on a machine told me that a tool was not included. I didn't even know the name of that tool. I've never heard that before. I looked on apt search, and the tool was already there on the repository, and I was the maintainer of that tool. I completely forgot about its existence, and it wasn't pre-installed. So I modified the line of code to make it pre-installed on the next version because he needed that. It was like a fuzzing tool. So that's if not even me can have track of everything unless relying on the specific project management tools, just don't get scared by approaching an open source project.
Now, we have an awesome follow-up question, also from Asterate. This one reads, would you say the methodology approach for security testing in open source projects is similar to bug bounty projects? So kind of a similar methodology there. I don't know how much experience you have with bug bounty. So we can, go ahead.
Okay. The first reaction I had when I first read the question was probably not, because bug bounty is something you do without having the source code in hands. But now I get the real meaning of the question. And the answer is yes, absolutely. You get your community involved in making your product more secure. That is for sure a way of adopting an open source kind of mindset. And for sure, I encourage it. Bug bounty is a bit sketchy, at least to me, and I always have hard opinions on that. I don't insult people around, but have hard opinions on things. For me, bug bounty, this is the reason I didn't do that, is a way for a company to not take liability, to not invest into having like a firm doing an actual review of code, but having random people unpaid to do the tests, and just pay them in case they found something. But I still believe bug bounty is something that should be there to reward those people who actually find something. It's just that you also have to implement other security testing measures, like paying someone maybe to not find anything on your code. It is something that have absolutely to be done. Both are to be done in a company. And bug bounty, if done properly, is an amazing way for curious people to get rewarded for what they find out. Come on, 20 years ago, people used to get arrested if they found something. Now, if you found a 0-day vulnerability in fucking Chrome, you might spend the rest of your life doing absolutely nothing because of the millions you get out of that. So it is amazing.
Now, we have a super serious follow-up question. It's more of a comment from username UnrealFarts69. They commented, you got a cool accent, Lorenzo. And I felt that was important to acknowledge.
In Italy, we don't have the same foreign language culture as in other countries. So for me, it was very, very hard to develop kind of good, skill set in that, because everything in Italy gets translated. So I learned English by watching movies in their original languages, by speaking with people from non-native English language spoken countries. How to say that? Okay, I'm getting back. So my English is a mixture of things I've been surrounded with for years. Maybe my written one is kind of better, but I try to do my best.
I just mostly wanted to acknowledge that comment from that username, just to make sure you saw that.
Yeah.
This is important.
I wanted to do it live, so again, it's on my own.
Of course.
It's all of me.
Here, go ahead. I have the next question ready whenever you are ready, but I don't want to cut you off as well. Ready?
No. Let's go with the other one.
Awesome. So the second question that I had just in my list of questions is, how important is it to maintain open source projects for the software industry? The counterpoint to this question is, why shouldn't you rely on only closed source projects?
Well, closed source projects mean there is a company behind that can be considered liable for any issue you have. But if we look at the history of software, every time an entire industry was dominated by exclusively closed source products, that industry completely stagnated and cut, especially us, the curious guys, out of the business. Not only that, but it also prevented that industry from growing up and developing into something else, something better, something better, I think is the best way to define it. I'll give you an example. Digital forensics. Digital forensics is a scientific process. You need to be able to reproduce whatever you do during your analysis. For those who are not familiar with that, it basically means someone gets arrested and a technician has to, or usually in some countries there are police officers, in others they are consultants of the police department. or they could be also private investigators for specific cases, like investigating on business infidelity or something like that. Let's say you get caught and your computers and phones need to be analyzed to extract the digital evidence, a digital proof of a conversation, of a file you downloaded, the proof of a crime that was committed. A process needs to be established that needs also to be reproducible. You cannot damage the proof, so you have to apply a very important, a very peculiar scientific methodology in order to do that properly. And since information technology is built by standards, it was extremely easy, especially in the early 2000s, to develop the proper tools to clone a disk byte by byte without compromising its content. So you could actually do another round of the same tool and get exactly the same output, or to be able to do the tests on a genuine copy of the whole thing and have the same result as if the test, if a destructive test was done on the original one. Unfortunately, technology evolved, but the tools, the open source tools to do digital forensics didn't. And the only tools that actually evolved, for instance, to do a mobile phone analysis, were proprietary tools. As of today, only one or two products exist to do digital forensics properly. Just naming one, there is UFED from Cellbrite. It costs a lot. Nobody knows how it works, so it is impossible to demonstrate how the agent went to that result. Of course, if you buy the same product and you do the same scan, you'll have the same output, but you don't know how the scan was performed. So we have no clue how it works. We are not allowed to. We are not allowed to expand it to include support to an app that is not included by default. So you entirely have to rely on that. And digital forensics completely died. As of today, there is no way of doing a full digital forensics operation by relying on open source tools you can actually know how they work. It is a pity. In fact, the digital forensics industry completely stopped at this point. It is just the few companies doing their products and keeping them updated for the latest versions of whatever phone is out. But for everything else, we are out of it completely. Let's get even back in time, the browsers industry. We are safe now with open web standards only because the Mozilla Foundation made Firefox as an alternative. Well, they what was the previous one? Like Netscape, they bought it and continued it as Firefox. So it was an open alternative existed for people to expand and develop open standards on. Imagine if Microsoft succeeded at their plan of having a web monopoly with Internet Explorer back then.
What a terrible world!
Exactly. Imagine having to pay Microsoft in order to be able to introduce some features to make your website look modern. Or it is not something that sounds crazy, because do you remember when the Acrobat products were a thing?
Oh God!
Like Macromedia Flash Player or the Acrobat, the other one I don't remember the name. When if you wanted to have some animations or your website, you had to rely on some agents running on your computer, full of very, very critical vulnerabilities that potentially enabled anyone with the proper technology, with the proper key, to access your computer. It was a security hazard. It wasn't just an industry stagnating there. It was a security hazard for anyone using that kind of products. And there were services that were exclusively usable through these kind of things. So open source also makes sure that the internet and our way of doing computing stays secure. Wait, it doesn't mean that every open source project is more secure than a proprietary one. There are several cases where it doesn't apply. Being open source enables the community, if any, to actually test for the security of the code. Keeping it proprietary does not stop the bad guys from finding a way to exploit your software. So it's not by keeping your source secret that you keep it more secure. Security by obscurity is something that every professional security something will discourage from adopting. Even cryptography, come on, you have to open the best door is the one that stays secure, even if the projects are out there. In fact, the best cryptographic standards are standards. You know how they work, yet they are still secure. This is the perfect definition of the most secure code in the world.
Thank you for talking about closed source too. I'm sure you've encountered this. I do want to make sure I get to a couple other questions in chat, but quickly, just as a counterpoint to that, I'm sure you've seen this, but in my work as a pen tester, I often find that closed source receives significantly less scrutiny, and it's almost only tested by corporate pen testers, if ever. Just because it's inaccessible. Would you say that your experience is in line with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I understand that for smaller projects, and I will give an example later, it is fundamental to have a business model, a revenue model to support yourself from continuing to do the software. And sometimes there is a way to do it with open source. It is an amazing way of doing it with open source, but it doesn't work all the time. So I understand some of the projects who go proprietary, but I don't understand the most of them. Especially those who go like in hybrid mode. They try to open whenever they can, but they are kind of scared of opening the code. They are not risking anything. There is this fear of your competitor copying your features and doing a product which is better than yours. By my experience and by looking at the history of we have some history now, like at least 40 years old. History of modern ways of doing open source code and how it worked. Open sourcing a project never led to your competitor to clone you and make their code better. You might take inspiration from your code, but if you invested into your code base, you are not interested in throwing it away to copy what an open source project did instead. It is a thing. It is a thing that happens. If you ever sit at a table where a company decides what to do next, cloning some open source competitor has never been an option there. Instead, the others might take inspiration from your code. And if you do your licensing right, you might force them to contribute back with their code in case they did better on top of your own idea. So you might have your competitors helping you with your code. In other examples, like let's say Kubernetes, Google did its own containers orchestrator for its infrastructure. They did it open source. And what's happening now? Their direct competitors who decided to adopt Kubernetes have not just stolen it. Quite the opposite. They are contributing that way. So open sourcing your project is actually a way to have your competitors make your own project bigger and better. And also, it is a way to establish dominance over the industry. It is extremely specific to true for big organizations. If your competitors use your own product, what will their clients believe of you? That's the point of opening a project like Kubernetes. And in other cases, like let's say Facebook, they have their own orchestrator, in-house orchestrator that even done some years before Kubernetes was even a thing. They have never decided to. They didn't migrate to Kubernetes. They decided to continue on their own. Most of the downsides of going open source that people are complaining about, most of the cases are not an actual thing that happens in real life.
Thank you for speaking to that, especially some of the fears that can happen there. Let me go ahead and I have, by the way, chat, y'all have some awesome questions. Thank you for these questions. They're very well written, especially the one about Lorenzo's accent. Just great. I say that. I do say this more seriously, though. We do have a question here from a user named Superfly. Fun username, too. The question reads, what are some effective ways to leverage my current skills to contribute meaningfully to open source projects? And how can I identify projects that align with my expertise? So maybe a little bit broader than Parrot. How can you find something that you think you'd be good at contributing to?
Okay, this is an extremely hard question.
Do you want a minute to think about that? I can go to another question. Yeah. Here, let me go ahead. I'll grab another question.
Okay, let's try another. But I want to get back to that one later because it's interesting. It's hard, but it's interesting.
Great question. Just as a quick aside, I'm realizing that I need to steal you from another AMA so we can do another open source talk. So we'll definitely do that here in the next year to go over that. I say that just because we're getting a lot of interest here, and I want to make sure people can see the open source aspect of that. That being said, let's go ahead. I have another question on the list here, and we'll go back to that question afterwards. This question is, how can you live out of open source projects? Could you speak to that and kind of define that term live out of?
Yeah, business model. How do you get money to survive, to buy food by giving your software away for free? First of all, with open source, especially with most of the licenses out there, even like the GNU GPL, those that are very hardcore ones, you are allowed to sell your binaries. I give an example. The Ardor DAC, it is an audio workstation program. You can compose music with that. If you go to their website, you are forced to make a donation in order to download the executable. So you get money from donations, and you can enforce donations on the binary, because what has to be open source is the actual source code that has to be provided with the binary as well. Red Hat made an amazing open source Linux distribution. All the code is out there, public almost. They freaked out recently when they were bought by VMware. No, Oracle, I don't remember. I don't remember. Who cares? But they did an amazing product. You had to pay a lot to have it, but it was still open source. They could make one of the most influential and biggest in terms of revenue Linux distributions out there, and that was successful, and the code was free. And there is also another way of doing that. You can sell services on top of your product. Look at the Blender Foundation. You can rent remote servers to do that. You can have training. There are companies that rely on the software, so you don't get your money from doing the software. You get the money from the company that you can have on it. You can establish by that software just existing. There are, for instance, companies that sell enterprise services on top of Postgres, on top of other databases. We as Parrot get money from investors to keep Parrot alive. Why? Because there are companies like Hack the Box that need Parrot to stay alive. Not only to stay alive, but to be wealthy. So they're willing to hire us, create a department called Parrot inside, along with marketing, development, engineering, systems, and so forth. This is like a Parrot department inside Hack the Box. I am the leader of it, of course. We are completely free to continue our development with full autonomy. They don't tell us what to do, and they pay us a salary to continue just to work on the Parrot project. Because if Parrot fails, they will probably be forced to look for something else, which might be directly controlled by a competitor of them. There are several reasons why to do that. So they preferred, you know what? Let's hire these amazing guys and let's make them play with the system. And from time to time, since we have a good understanding of how the industry is evolving, we might also have some good ideas for them. They're not only the only ones. There are other companies that are interested in supporting Parrot as a project. And if not Parrot, there are companies interested in supporting other tools that are included into Parrot. So there are several ways of gaining from open source software. You just have to find the one that adapts better to you. This is my opinion on that, because I've seen it happening, but I know it can be hard. It is, of course, a harder path, because it is not what we are taught in school. There is no what we see other companies do. So we have first to understand the whole model, how it works, how to use it properly, how to take advantage of it in a profitable way before deciding to do the big move. Otherwise, we are lost.
Don't mind me. I had some awesome questions come in chat, and they were distracting me there at the end. Thank you, everyone.
Can we get back to the harder one before we?
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump back to that one, and then I have a couple other questions that we'll wrap up with. And additionally, I'll make sure to get some more time with you just because I see all the interest here and I want to make sure that folks can learn about open source. Especially, I mean, I've been in this situation before that it can be difficult. It can be a little bit of a fear factor to get involved where it's how do I actually do that? And that's a great segue into this question that I didn't mean to do. But hey,
yeah, when you think you got the point, you didn't.
Yeah. Here, let me go ahead. I'll read this question again, just because I want to give you the full question or the question in full. This comes again from Superfly. What are some effective ways to leverage my current skills to contribute meaningfully to open source projects? Additionally, how can I identify projects that align with my expertise? So the first part of that question is, how can I use my current skills to contribute to open source projects? So what I have right now, how can I kind of discover or go through what I know? I mean, you can even use me as an example if you want.
Well, first answer is, it is another question, sorry for that. What is an open source project that you use daily and I've never looked into it? Try opening the source code and see what you can get. For me, I will give you my answer to that question, because which might not exactly be the right answer for you, Superfly, but let's see if it answers you. For me to stay alive in the industry, which is constantly evolving, I have to chase what my current passion is. Otherwise, I get demotivated. I struggle to keep on. So I feel now that I know how I work, I feel free to span through whatever my current passion is and try to explore it. So if you are curious about something, you might look into the open source projects that will help you to do so. I was recently involved into DJing. Again, I started with music when I was very young. Then I posed for information technology, cybersecurity. Now I'm again into music. So I started to look into codecs, FFmpeg source code, and so forth. So instead of identifying projects that might align with your expertise, open source exploration might be a chance for you to develop an expertise from the ground up. Are you new to cybersecurity? Are you learning cybersecurity? Are you building an expertise in the cybersecurity industry? Try to look into the source code of the tools you might encounter while you do a course, the Hack the Box Academy, or whatever you're doing at university if you are there. And the source code, since it is made by hackers, which means lazy people in a hurry, it's usually very simple and easy to understand. Not only that, that code might be limited. While looking at the code, you might have ideas to expand it. For instance, there was a library I used. It was in Python. I hated Python with passion, but you have to know it. There was a library in Python to test whether a mail server is properly configured or not. I looked in the source code just because why not? And I saw I could understand every part of it. It was extremely easy to understand because the Python APIs to interact with the SMTP were easy. I saw that I needed to do some tests to test the actual configuration because there was also a proxy involved that the application wasn't doing. I wrote those few lines of code to do that. So that was my first way into understanding the SMTP protocol better, getting back into Python. I still hate it with passion, but doesn't matter.
Ouch! You talking
and get to know a new tool.
Python there, sir.
Sorry for that. It is an industry standard, of course, but it is very slow. There are many downsides of using it. And the context I currently work on for fast prototyping, of course, it is very, very useful. So
I just can't miss a moment to give you crap, though. You walked right into it. Here, go ahead. Go ahead. I cut you off there.
If you have a tool in your minds and you are building an expertise into whatever you're doing, open whatever you have in your minds. If it looks very too big to begin with, just do it anyways. Maybe you might not get it now, but maybe in 10 years you will get back to that project, open the source code, and understand it. For instance, Blender is one of the examples of that, because several years ago, I tried to understand the source code of Blender because I wanted to get involved into the development of their video editor they're integrating. I couldn't get a shit of that source. It was too hard for me. The way it was structured was very complicated. I hate C++ as well because of how many features it has. That make you think about the feature to use rather than the code you want to develop. In fact, I am, guess what, a Golang developer. For those who got the joke. Few months ago, I got back into lurking into the source code of Blender. And guess what? All the time wasted in opening Blender years ago got back again as a useful experiment I did years ago. So you never waste your time while exploring the code, even if it's not for you. Even if you open the project, it's not too complicated because you don't even know that language. It will get back at some point. It will reward you with something, anyways. But yeah, I get it is hard to do. So the first time you are completely blind in this world. Once you start doing that, you get familiar with that. It is exactly when you have to learn your first programming language. You don't get what you're doing. When you after the second language, every language mostly looks the same, and you are willing to maybe learn a new one. It is easy to understand. It's easy to do because they kind of work the same way. There is only one difference here between the you at the first programming language and the you at the third or the fourth, which is your confidence in addressing the subject. So just open the source code of whatever project is involved in the expertise you're trying to develop and see what you can get there. If you do it with confidence, even if you close the whole project without getting a shit, it will not be time wasted, for sure. Or maybe you already are familiar with some development and you see that the make file is not written properly. Maybe compiling some of the extra things is done in the installation stage instead of the build stage. So you decided to contribute to that and fix their make file. That will be a valuable contribution to the project. And you will be able to do that without even understanding how the source code actually works. So you don't even have to look for that, because make file is maybe something you know. So every project has something that you know that you might contribute to. Other questions? Also, I don't want you to run out of time because we have other guests, I believe.
Yeah, I think we will be able to take one more question. I have a really good one here that I like, and then we'll end off on how you can contribute to Parrot, just to wrap that up and make sure that everyone has those links. We're getting a lot of great questions, and I apologize if I'm not able to get to your questions. There are just so many good ones here. Apologies, one of the users in chat appears to have a name that's made out of Japanese or Chinese kanji. I cannot read that name, so unfortunately I cannot display that question because I can't confirm if it's something bad or not. However, I do want to acknowledge you have some great questions. We have an awesome question here that I wanted to end on before we get to contributing. This one comes from Jack the Lion. This one has to do with AI contributions to code, and I thought this one was very interesting and very topical. Here's the question in full. Has AI contributed code become an issue with open source, and how is that code identified? Is it business as usual, or have you had to adapt the code review process?
Well, you immediately identify code made by an AI. It looks too good to be true. Everything is commented, well organized and structured. Then when you start looking into the logic, the way it is assembled, you start to see things that should not be there. Also, the code standard might not fit the code standard of your own project. And this is a clear indicator that someone either didn't give a shit about looking at your code and understanding how it is done, or just copied the code from somewhere else. AI is an issue for writing code because if you know exactly what to ask, it might be helpful for you to automate your own writing code. Otherwise, it is completely useless because the average, the quality of the code is the average of all the code that the AI was trained on. So you introduce the same bugs that are most common to happen, and so forth. It is an extremely useful device for an expert to be faster at doing code. It will destroy entirely the open source projects if exclusively relying on that. For instance, we recently received a pull request to one of our projects that was entirely made by an AI. You could tell it because a developer is usually lazy, and the description of that commit was huge and verbose. So, and the AI cannot really expand the content you gave to it, like the prompt, the content embedded in the prompt. So whatever it can do is to add useless semantics to it in order to make it look coherent in language, but the actual content is the only the one provided in the prompt. Just run me the prompt, so I have all the information. Not waste my time forcing me to read a giant block of text where you describe the few things you did. The few things were also being done through AI, so you could see that the code had a different style. We were using snake case that was camel case instead, things like that. It used a class that didn't existed. It did a check that was already performed in another file, so we had to discard it. Politely, of course, but we had to discard it. So we wasted some time handling AI contribution. It is a thing. Of course, it requires some adjustments of the review processes, because you have first to identify whether you are dealing with real code or AI code, and then decide what to do then. So there is an extra stage. It's not about adding for maybe stages to your review pipelines. It is more about being trained to handle these kind of situations. Which are becoming very, very common. So it's not about changing the process. It is about changing the way we are trained to the process now that we have this new thing.
Yeah. Wait, you're saying it's a bad idea to fire coders and just replace them with AI? What do you mean? I thought that it's just AI.
It is the worst thing you could even do. Well, if you are an extremely good developer and AI makes you faster at writing good code that you are able to recognize as good code, then yes, you might be more productive. And if you have many developers that are way more productive, you might not need the less skilled ones. You might rely on less developers, but those have to be well trained and well skilled. For instance, you cannot have just juniors handling a project written by with AI assistants. The AI assistant have to be used by an expert. Then in the company, you might need only that expert instead of 3 developers. Maybe this is something that might happen, and automation has always replaced the repetitive and useless is the wrong word, but allow me to use it, resources that you have in the company. Automation is a thing that we cannot stop. Now we are at the verge of a new revolution, a new automation iteration in the industry, and it's helping to replace many people, actually, as always have happened since we invented the steam machines or whatever. So we, at some point, will figure out that some people cannot be replaced and that other can. There, we will have reached probably maturity of AI in our flow. For instance, AI is not creative. So if you replace your designer with AI, it will your users will unconsciously notice it and believe that you didn't even give a shit about your product to hire a professional and instead relied on AI. That usually makes a lot of errors, not only in code, but also in everything else. With semantics, with words, if you need to check the language of a book or something like that, it could be useful. But the content, you have to put yourself in. And that content have to be quality content. So you have to hire people that will be able to do it on their own with the proper expertise. Then AI can help.
Heck yeah! Thank you for the in-depth answer with that, especially off of my some of my joking commentary too. I really appreciate you stepping through that, especially because it is a uniquely modern problem, especially with your lived experience with being the head of an open source project. I really appreciate you speaking to that. That being said, I really appreciate being able to borrow you for some extra time. Just for everyone that's in chat, we had some extra time. Some of our talks were a little bit shorter, so I was able to give us a little bit more time. Lorenzo did not know that out in front, so I was able to abduct him for a little bit longer. That being said, I do need to get on to the other talks, so I'm going to go ahead and move us on to our last question, just to make sure that we get everything there And thank you all for the love in chat. Thank you, of course, for all the great questions. Chat, you have been fantastic. These questions have been very well articulated. Thank you for asking them. Thank you for, thank you just for being here. Y'all are killing it, and it's great. Okay, wrapping up that. Getting back to you, Lorenzo, thank you for your patience there. I wanted to talk about, last but certainly not least, contributing to Parrot. Could you talk through the various ways? So if I wanted to, like maybe right after this talk ends, say I want to go and contribute now, how can I get involved? Where should I join? What are the things that I should start reading or be familiar with? Other than Emma saying you need to fix your mirrors.
Yeah, okay. It is a hard subject, especially for Parrot, more than any other open source project, because Parrot is an operating system. So it is not just a program, but it is a huge collection of other programs that were just put together in a functioning product. So there are several ways to contribute to it. You might want to contribute to the Parrot system itself. So you have to identify those packages that we wrote to add a specific icon to the menu and so forth. Or you might contribute to one of the tools or programs that we have inside, that we provide to users, because maybe you need to patch a tool that doesn't work, maybe because we couldn't provide the latest version of a tool because we weren't able to pack all the libraries it depends on. So this is where your help might be very, very useful to us. But since the structure is very unclear, especially at the beginning, you don't have like one repository with the Parrot source code. You have to, you are lost in a sea of packages that you have to know and explore. So the best way to contribute to the project is to use it, know it, get familiar with it, and then start to notice things that could be improved. Then get back to us, and on our website we have all the links to our communities, to our private channels, emails, and contacts. Approach to us and ask, how can I contribute by fixing this thing, by upgrading this package, by maintaining this new tool that you don't provide? And then we will intervene and guide you through the whole process to get completely autonomous in contributing to the project. Or maybe there are other ways you can contribute to, by writing the documentation, by updating the old one, by making video tutorials with our assistants. So you can do that, and it's free. It's free for you. It's not free for us, because we decided to give back a lot of prizes to our contributors through Hack the Box and other partners that put also real money into it. We can compensate you for collaborating to the system. We can give you Parrot gadgets. We do giveaways to our contributors, and we have a very well done contributors program where we track your contributions. We help you with them if they're not still quality ones. We will intervene to help you instead of just refusing them. And we will have like a scoreboard where we track your contribution and reward you if you keep consistent, if you did a certain amount of commits during the month, and so forth. So the rewards will be something back to that. And then, of course, there is the image return, because you will appear as a contributor of a well-established project like Parrot Security, which is something you could put on your CV and so forth. That is very helpful for finding a job if you know how to spend that thing with companies.
Absolutely. I made sure as well while we were talking there to add, I threw the parrotsec.org link in chat. And then additionally, I grabbed the Parrot Discord, which I hear is a pretty cool place. Not that I'm in it at all or anything. I don't know. I grabbed that link, and that is the link from the community page. Real quick, I did want to, I will give you a little bit of promo here. I wanted to speak to the fact that the Parrot community, I said this is just someone that works in community. The community there is very cozy, and that's a great thing. I say this as in, if you're looking for a community just to get involved or really find a home community that you can make friends in and kind of sink your teeth into, so to speak, I really would recommend going through and joining the community. It's a great place to get started. A lot of people just hang out there and hack. Lorenzo, is there anything you wanted to add to my bit of self promo for y'all, I should say?
Yeah, well, every cybersecurity community has its level of toxicity, but we were lucky enough to keep it very, very clean, actually. Incidents always happen, but we are very passionate about the topic. We are try to establish friendship with our community, and if you are lucky enough and active enough, you might have a chance to enter our secret channel. It's like the secret cult of the sexy bird. So if you land there, you know you are someone in the Parrot community. Jokes apart, just get involved with open source projects because the people you can meet there are amazing. Your next job might come from the networking you do while being involved with just the community of an open source project. My first job came from a local community of people passionate about information technology.
I mean, heck, that it was the same for me. It was all my content that I created for other sites, competitors. Wink.
Every story of a successful career begins with steps that are impossible to reproduce, except they all have a common pattern, which is the networking of people you establish while attending conferences and participating to communities. And open source is the way of doing community in the software industry.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you, Lorenzo, so much for your time. I will make sure to, I'll work with you to set up some additional time for an AMA or maybe even a getting started stream where we talk through how to get involved.
Absolutely, yes. So maybe I could fix my English finally.
I don't know if I don't know. You're going to get a lot of Iowa-isms from me. I don't know. Do you want to learn a lot of English bad words? Cool.
Not from you. Maybe
anyhow, I want to make sure we get to our next talks, and I really appreciate your time here, especially keeping you a little over an hour, Lorenzo. I really appreciate it. I know, right?
Oh, poor follows. Come on.
I may not have told you what time or how long we were going. It's more fun that way.
You told me 20 minutes at least.
Yeah. Anyhow, I need to make sure to get to the next talk. So thank you so much again, Lorenzo Palinuro, for being here. Is there any shout outs, anything you want to mention as we wrap up your talk?
Not really. Just let's see what we can do with the next one.
Heck yeah.
No, and just download Parrot to try it.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I'll put those links in chat again. Be sure to join the Parrot Discord. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for being here. We're going to go ahead and move to our next talk.